Hi everyone. Today we are going to discuss another interview coding problem which is brackets validator. Okay, so we have three types of bracket. Okay, so we need to identify if a given bracket has its corresponding closing bracket. So this here is a true scenario, okay, a valid scenario. Whereas if we look at another scenario, say for example, we have this and maybe this followed by this. So this is a invalid scenario because we do not have a corresponding closing bracket or parenthesis. Okay, so we can also complicate it further by having some maybe random, integer characters or anything in between them. So this is right. This here is creating an invalid scenario. Okay, so we need to identify if all of the opening brackets have a corresponding closing bracket. So that is the job of our validator. So how do we do that? Okay, let's just take a valid scenario first and keep the noise aside. Okay, so we have this first opening bracket, then we have second, and then we have third. So as soon as we hit a closing bracket, right, we go back and try to see if the other opening bracket or the last, or we can say the recent most opening bracket was similar to the one which we have encountered as closing bracket. So if that's fine, we will have a valid scenario and then we move on ahead and then we again see if there is a closing bracket or an opening bracket. So that's another closing bracket. So we will try to find the last closing bracket and then we have another valid scenario and so on. So every time we hit a valid scenario, we will remove the opening bracket from that whatever data structure we are going to use for persistence. Okay, and then we have another valid scenario, so we will remove this one now and then this one. So if at the end of the iteration we have the data structure or maybe an array list as empty, so we have a valid scenario. And in any time and at any point in time during the iteration, if we have a invalid scenario, we break from there and return false. And any noise which we come across, like any random alphabet or integer, we will just ignore them. We will just move on with the iteration. All right, guys, let's jump on to coding part now. Let's just call this class bracket validator. Okay, and then let's create a boolean method. Private static, it is going to return boolean value true or false, and we can name it as maybe is valid or is bracket sequence valid. It will take string as input. Let's just return false for now. Okay, so we want to validate if, let's just take a sample here. Say for example, that's our brackets. Okay, So we have to validate this. First we take positive scenario. Okay. Okay, the first thing we'll do, we'll split the input string into a character array. Okay. Put dot to char array. So this will give us the equivalent characters. Okay, so as we discussed that we will iterate through the passed in inputs. Okay, so let's just do that. Create for loop. Okay, and every time we hit, let's just some space here. Every time we hit an opening bracket or an opening parenthesis, we will add it into, say for example, into an array list. List of character. Let's just call it as brackets. Array list. Okay. Okay. So we have our array list here, and time we want every time we hit an opening bracket, we want to insert into our brackets. In order to do that, what we'll do is we need to check if it is an opening bracket or any other character. Okay, so what we'll do is we will put an if loop, see what's coming in the array. Okay, and then we can have an or condition here. Okay, so okay, so we have covered all our possible opening brackets here. So every time there is an opening bracket, so we will add it into brackets dot add. We can add that character into the brackets. So this is about the opening brackets, and then we will have else if. So we will do opposite of this. Okay. So every time we hit a closing bracket now. So say for example, we have added all these opening brackets and now we hit this closing bracket. So what we'll do, we will search in the opposite format now. So if it is a closing bracket, all right. So if it is a closing bracket, what we want to do in that case, we want to check if the last added bracket, say for example, this one was added as an opening bracket in the last, and now we hit this closing bracket. So we want to check if the last bracket which was added is is the closing bracket. Okay, so how to do that? So we'll take another character. Okay, maybe we can call it as last bracket. Okay, and we take it out from our array list brackets dot get size, sorry, brackets dot size -1. Okay, so that will give us the last bracket, and then we want to check. So how will you check if it was the same one? Okay, so what we'll do, maybe Okay, so let's just create another method which will return us the last or maybe the corresponding. So, okay, let me just explain here. So we want to create another method. So we encountered this closing bracket. Okay. So what we are looking for is its corresponding opening bracket is what we want. So that is how we will be able to compare if the opening and closing are matching. Okay. So what we'll do is last bracket if not equal to get. Okay, so let's just create get opening bracket new method in which we will pass the closing bracket. Okay, so what's our closing bracket is it's the current character we have in hand. Okay, let's just create this method. Okay, so we have created this method here. So simple, nothing difficult about it. We will just have the opposite brackets here. Let's just put a switch here. Okay, so we can have the ch which is passed in. Okay, and then we can have the values as the closing brackets. Okay, and if it is matching the curly braces, then we can return the opposite curly brackets. Okay, or parenthesis. Okay, so that's one. And we will copy this for all other possible scenarios. Okay, let's just replace it with the square brackets. And then you can have our normal bracket here. And if that bracket or uh, let's just return maybe default we can return some random character there. Okay, let's just remove this. Okay, sounds like so for curly braces, for the curly or closing curly braces, we are returning the opening curly braces and so on. Okay, so so let me just revise it. Okay, so we have added all the opening brackets here. Or whenever an opening bracket will be encountered, we will add it into the brackets array list. And whenever we encounter a closing bracket, we will try to get its corresponding closing bracket and then we will compare it. Okay, so in this case, say for example, we are here, okay, and we have encountered this closing bracket and we have asked for the corresponding opening bracket that will be returned as this bracket. Oh, I'm sorry, these needs to be opposite. Okay, so yeah, and this will return the corresponding opening bracket, and if both of them are not equal. Okay, so in that case, we have a invalid scenario. Okay, let's just take another Boolean variable here, which will keep track of uh, if we are if we encounter any invalid scenario. So let's just call it as invalid input maybe. Okay, let's just initialize it with false for now. So we are considering that the Gaussian input is by default true. Okay, so here we what we will do is invalid input is equals to true. That means we have encountered an invalid scenario, and once we have encountered it, we no longer need to iterate. So let's just put a break here. what we can do is otherwise, or else we can just remove. So the bracket which have met the condition, we can remove. So like I talked about, we will remove the bracket if we have corresponding closing bracket. So brackets dot remove brackets dot size minus 1. So okay, so this should, so once we have corresponding bracket, we will remove this from the brackets array list. Okay, and in the end we can just return invalid input. Okay, so by default it was false, and this should return true if it is invalid, and I think we are good. Let's just try to test the positive scenario here. System out. What was our name again? Sorry, please bracket sequence valid. Let's just try to test it out. Why is it saying false? So we have this. All the closing brackets are present, and it is saying false. Why? Uh, okay, sorry. Let's just negate this. Okay, now it's fine. Let's just try to test some more scenario. Let's just remove this square bracket and see what happens now. Okay, it says false. Let's try a few more. Say we have the square bracket restored and we have another pair of brackets. Okay, so yeah, this is working fine. We have the corresponding closing bracket. So let's just put some numbers in between this, maybe 888, 333. Let's just try to run it. Okay, so it is giving us true because it have all the scenario, right? So I think we have reached the solution. It's working perfectly fine. I hope you enjoyed this interview question, guys. If you like it, please like, subscribe, and comment. Your feedback is always welcome. Thank you.